video, and I'm going to be doing more of these. I'll probably try to adjust some of these to be a little bit better as far as like how it looks. I might even redo it at some point. You know, for example, the past week or two, well, yeah, last 2 weeks, I've been listening to King Diamond's Them a lot more, and I probably put it up further on my ranking. And then also, I should probably edit these and stuff, but we're just gonna go with this for now. And I'm probably gonna do a Blind Guardian one next. I have to listen to a few of their more recent albums a little bit more to really do that, but seeing them live, even the newer material sounded fantastic. So I think a lot of it has to do with the production, unfortunately, of the modern albums, that I don't like them as much. I think that's part of the reason. And I've gone into that before, but once I do my ranking video for Blind Guardian, I'm going to definitely talk about that, because I saw him live at Metal Fest, Milwaukee Metal Fest, which I should do a review of, but it's kind of been it's probably a little too long to do. It's already a week ago. So it was fantastic, by the way, Milwaukee Metal Fest. We saw in my drummer and stuff, we went, and then the second day we went with other people. We drove back and forth because I live very close to Milwaukee, or an hour and a half away. So it was cool. DSide were amazing. I got to meet J-Dog, if anybody follows. I don't know. He kind of seemed a little kind of like not in the mood to meet people. But we got a picture with him too. It was DSide. I was up front, in the front row, right by the security people and stuff. It was amazing. And Blind Guardian were good, but the Eagles Ballroom sucked. The sound was worse than normal concerts I go to there. With the exception of a couple bands, like Eternal Bleeding actually sounded good, got their sound right, but most of the bands didn't. Even Blind Guardian, Symphony X, or Camelot, it just sounded really weird. But anyways, like the Century Media stage and the other stage downstairs sounded great, but the Eagles Ballroom sounded like shit. So I'm just going to do this video. So, as a background to this Mercyful Fate thing, Mercyful Fate were the band that got me back into metal in the mid to late 90s, whatever you want to call, 96, 97. In that era, that is what got me into metal again, like full force. The fall of 96, I started buying Mercyful Fate King Diamond albums, and I started to what the whole story is. Like in 93 or 94, I bought Melissa at the mall. I took the bus home, and I put it on, and I was like, I was floored. I loved it. I was absolutely adoring of that album. But I was kind of a Christian at the time, and I was like scared of satanic music, Satan, so I threw it away. I was a teenager. And then years later, I got less scared of that stuff and just started to like kind of get into like LaVey and stuff, and I just started reading a lot of stuff, theologically, religiously, or whatever you want to call it, that philosophically especially, that it kind of softened my view on a lot of that stuff, so I didn't really care as much either way. So, I'll do more videos about that whole subject too, because I have a lot of opinions about that too now that have kind of evolved through time. So without further ado, I'm going to do my King Diamond ranking now, so instead of blabbing for 4 more minutes about it. So the first one, I'm just going to do it in order this time. The first one is Don't Break the Oath, which came... Oh, no, that's not the first one. I'm sorry. Melissa is the first one of these full lengths. I wish this had the EPs and stuff, but this is the first album that came out. I'm going to put it in S tier. Now, I love this album in many ways. It really has a lot of just epic songwriting. It's come out that I should have realized this in the past, but King Diamond's come out and said that they were very into prog. He's particularly fond of Genesis, the band Genesis, the 70s Genesis, obviously. And the thing about Genesis is that 2 of my favorite other musicians in metal are also into them, as well as I. So when you talk about Genesis, like Peter Gabriel or early Phil Collins Genesis, when they were still prog, Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, Hansi Kirsch of Blind Guardian, just talking about them earlier. Very much into Genesis, and I've read many interviews with those guys, and I'm just like, I never knew King Diamond was a big fan until recently, and I started reading that more and more, and listening to podcasts and stuff. I'm like, dude, that's just like the favorite of everybody, and with good reason, So the next this album has it's definitely an influence on thrash and black metal, and the vocals are great. A lot of Judas Priest influences, there's a lot of stuff on that. I've been talking about 70s Priest, the epic Priest, of course. Melissa's a great song, Evil's a great song. My favorite song off the album is At the Sound of the Demon Bell. I just love that song. I just love the vocals and how it just kind of builds and stuff. And Into the Coven, Curse of the Pharaohs, Black Funeral, Satan's Fall is great. It's an epic song. Has a lot of really dark, dissonant riffs in the middle and stuff. And Melissa is a great tune as well. So there's nothing more that you could say, really, you could say more about Melissa. It's a classic. Now, their next album was 84's Don't Break the Oath. And, of course, it goes in S tier, but this is another thing. It goes into number one. It is my favorite, probably King Diamond associated album of all time. Just the hooks, the catchiness of it. It takes a lot of things further that were on their first full-length album. In some ways, it kind of does streamline things a little bit, and people might think, Desecration of Souls is one of my favorite songs off there. The Oath, Night of the Unborn, those are probably my three favorites. I like Gypsy, I like Come to the Sabbath, Dangerous Meeting. I just named 5 songs of the band. I win that meme. It's okay. I love this album more than anything. The atmosphere. See, Melissa didn't have that atmosphere. It just sounded kind of like an early 80s rock or metal album. But the atmosphere, and it's more reverb and stuff, and more delay. But the atmosphere of Don't Break the Oath, that really gives it like spooky but very catchy and accessible atmosphere. Of course, it's very satanic and whatever. Philosophically, like King Diamond has kind of this thing that he does with his lyrics and stuff that you kind of have to read between the lines sometimes. Sometimes a lot of metaphors. It's actually very similar. I realized this more recently. It's actually more similar to Dio than I realized, even though there's mention of Satan and stuff more often. But yeah, Don't Break the Oath is my favorite, and that is always going to be like the best thing that King Diamond, in my opinion, my favorite King Diamond thing. So King Diamond, the band formed shortly thereafter, and Hank Sherman wanted to play funk. And then he wanted to play AOR. For some reason, he switched to AOR with the band Fate, which is not Mercyful Fate, but Hank Sherman quit. And Michael Denner and the rest of the band went to King Diamond with Andy LaRocque as the other guitarist. And they did a string of albums. Nothing more needs to be said about that. I already did my ranking video for King Diamond solo. Now, just as a note, Mercyful Fate's my preference to King Diamond over King Diamond. I love the groove. I love the riffs. I just, I can't get enough of these albums. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't love King Diamond solo, or the band King Diamond, whatever you want to call it. I see it kind of like Alice Cooper, because Alice Cooper had his original band. It was a little more raw, a little bit more, what's the word? I don't know. It had a little bit more of a thing to it, a little bit more of a presence, a vibe that's different. No, it's different. And Welcome to My Nightmare would be like Fatal Portrait of King Diamond. That's Alice Cooper's first solo, quote-unquote, outing, even though he didn't rename the band. But that's kind of how I see King Diamond. Alice Cooper did some great post-original lineup albums. Alice Cooper did. Post-original lineup albums. And King Diamond did some fabulous. Actually, King Diamond, to me, his solo stuff, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know if you call it solo, is superior to Alice Cooper's post Billion Dollar Babies discography as far as like the switch between the two bands. That doesn't mean that there isn't some later Alice Cooper albums that are amazing, but Alice Cooper is one of King Diamond's biggest inspirations. Spiders, come on, Anyways, I'm not going to talk about King. Alice Cooper. Maybe one day I'll do it in a ranking video. Alice Cooper. I love Alice Cooper. More recent years, I've been getting really into Alice Cooper. I saw him live with my mother, actually. So the next album to come out is their reunion album from '93. They broke up in '84, so it was like 8 or 9 years. '84, '85, I think. Actually, they broke up, and they did the King Diamond Band and stuff. And that is In the Shadows. Now, In the Shadows, this is going to be a little controversial, but I would say is my second favorite. Mercyful Fate album. I had to drag the mouse a little bit, or push the mouse a little more. It's my second favorite. I can't really stop saying good things about this album. My favorite song is probably Egypt. Is That You, Melissa, which is a sequel to the song Melissa off of Melissa, about a witch that's killed, and King Diamond's character gets revenge on the person, and then he's talking to her ghosts and stuff, and It's That You, Melissa. Now there are some conceptual pieces on In the Shadows. He said there was like 3 songs that have a story, and I'm going to have to read more of the lyrics and try to figure that out. But my favorite song is probably Legend of the Headless Rider. That riff alone, that first riff, is amazing. And I'm getting more familiar with classical music, but there is a technique they use in that reminds me of classical music, where it goes, there's one channel playing the guitar, and then one kind of responds, and it goes together. It's kind of this thing that they do in the beginning of that riff, which makes it the best, to me, the best riff, and one of the best riffs in metal is their intro to Headless Rider, in my opinion. Controversial, but true. So it's amazing. It's less satanic than the first 2. There's less oblique references to Satan and witchcraft, or whatever you want to call them. It's more horror stories, like the Old Oak. I believe there's a tree in Houston, Texas, of all places. I have a lot of family in Texas, by the way. That is, it might be sort of loosely based on that. I'm not sure, because King Diamond lives in Dallas, or lives in a suburb of Dallas. So I don't know if that's about that. There's a Bell Witch, which is a complete, it's a old ghost tale from the 1800s and stuff. And he does a song about that. He does a song about the Egyptian stuff, which is like Curse of the Pharaohs was about that. In the Shadows, a great song. I think one underrated song is A Gruesome Time. I really like that song. It has this vibe and this feeling I really like. So anyways, I would say that's my second favorite Mercyful Fate album. I think it was a great comeback. I think it's better than Brave New World, Angel Retribution, Death Magnetic. What other comeback albums did metal bands have? There's a bunch of different comeback albums, right? It's better than all of those. Way better. You can call it, I guess, only having 2 full-length albums. Is it a comeback or is it just a continuation? I don't know. It's just like Mercyful Fate now. I don't know. Because they never officially broke up after 9, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So the next one to come out after In the Shadows was Time. Now, Time, I've kind of fluctuated between where to put that in the discographies, and I'm giving these all S tier because I think these are all fantastic albums. I could put it in, it's borderline A tier, but I think Time has enough. Like Nightmare Be Thy Name, one of my favorite songs on this album for sure. It's just amazing song, and just has a groove to it, and it just has this like awesome vocal. And I deliberated whether or not to put this in a lower tier because it's not as great as the first 3 in some ways, but it has Time, which has introduction. Well, introduction was like is that you, Melissa, but harpsichord kind of keyboard sounds. Actually there's a little bit on the eye and some other, I think an earlier album. The emulator technology wasn't as advanced at that time, but this had like actually sounding like a harpsichord at this point. And that's what got me into harpsichord a lot, and like some of those sounds. It's probably Mercyful Fate, honestly. So, or King Diamond, because Spider's Lullaby had a lot of that too. But so yeah, it has a lot of cool stuff. The Preacher is kind of filler in a way, and that last song, Castillo. I'm not going to pronounce it. It's the last song. I don't like to pronounce things wrong, and I don't not as good as it's Spanish, but Del Morte or whatever. Uh, I don't like that song too much. It's kind of trying to be progressive, but it's like not. It doesn't. It's kind of a misfire in my opinion. It's okay. It's about this like angel and demon battle or something in Spain or is it South America or something? I don't know. It's probably based on something really happened, and you kind of made a more mythical take on it. I don't like that. It has the Mad Arab, which is about the Necronomicon, which I think is a great song. It has My Demon. It has uh, Witch's Dance, which is great too. Uh, it has a lot of good songs. So I think it definitely fits as fourth place, but also an S tier. So now we have where things are starting to show little signs of wear in a way. I'm not going to say that this does, but there are a couple. There is a track or two that are kind of filler, and that's Into the Unknown, the last with Michael Denner. And this one, I almost put it right here where time is. I really like it a lot now. I always thought it had some great ideas and melodies and riffs and stuff. I still think it's a great album. That said, I understand how people see it as kind of a step down from the previous four. I don't agree for the most part. Dead Time is kind of mediocre in my opinion. The song Dead Time and Holy Water is just funny. Me and my friend used to laugh about that song. It's kind of interesting lyrics about makes me burn. It's just kind of funny, and we always liked that song. We always thought that was pretty cool. So I would say still on the S tier because Uninvited Guest and Listen to the Bell and songs like that, and the Mad Arabs Part 2 Cthulhu, which is another sort of intentionally funny but unintentionally. I love that song. I actually want to do one of those car videos of me singing that song because I think it's great. I love that song. I think the whole album is really good for the most part. In fact, in a way, the highs, like Into the Unknown, the title track, the highs might overtake Time in some ways, because there is this drier, kind of thrashier sound he was going for. King Diamond, because King Diamond's solo band kind of did that too, like the Graveyard and Voodoo and stuff. It works with Mercyful Fate in a way, in a certain way better. So, in my opinion, Michael Denner is an amazing guitarist, and I think his loss is definitely heard on these two later albums I'm about to talk about. So I'm going to talk about Dead Again, which is the next one, which is after Michael Denner left. Now, I used to kind of overlook Dead Again the most out of any of the albums. I've recently started to listen to it again. And I'm going to have to say, it has some really good stuff and really kind of progressive, kind of technical kind of riffs and stuff that harken back to the earlier, like Melissa and stuff, like Satan's Fall and kind of stuff. And then it has Dead Again, which is the longest song other than Satan's Fall. So I would say this is, I've deliberated a little bit. I'm going to say, I'm not going to put it at A tier. I'm going to put it at B tier because it's excellent, but it's not at the heights of these. And I don't know what would go here. Maybe the beginning would go in A if the beginning was available on this, right? Mercyful Fate's beginning, or The Nuns Have No Fun, or whatever you call it, whatever iteration of that EP with the other tracks. Or without the other tracks I would probably say that's A tier. And Return to the Vampire, where I would put that, is probably A tier as well. So they're not on here. Maybe I'll do another ranking video in the future. I don't really care. It depends on how successful this one is honestly. But I like Dead Again a lot more than I did. So I saw the last night of the tour in 1999 of 9, which I recently listened to again for the first time in many years. Just like I said, I've been listening to a lot of this stuff for the first time in years. So forgive my lyrical missives on the lyrical misses when I'm doing some of the King Diamond Mercyful Fate, because it's been years since I listened to it, and back in the day, I actually didn't have like all the actual albums that had. I don't know if some of them had lyrics. Like I don't think Melissa had lyrics back in the day that came with it. And now you can look on Metal Archives and see somewhat accurate lyrics, for a lot of these albums. So I'm, but anyways, that's on another side note. So this is the next one is 9. Now 9 came out and it had more critical acclaim than Dead Again. At this point, I'd say that I like Dead Again a little bit more. So I'm gonna say this goes in C tier. It's okay. I don't think it's bad. Like a D tier would be like mediocre. I just found some of the writing a little bit clunkier. Now, 9 does introduce heavier guitars like down tuning or 7 string or something. Someone's playing. Mike Weed is in the band since Dead Again, so he probably brought in some more modern kind of sounds with guitar. It doesn't sell out or anything to groove metal or new metal or whatever, NU metal or whatever. So let's get that out of the way first. But it is a little bit more modern, quote unquote, sounding. Dead Again, the trend kind of started on probably on. Well, one could argue that In the Shadows kind of has a little bit. I almost forgot about talking about Return of the Vampire which is not the album but the song on Mercyful Fate's In the Shadows. That has the infamous Lars Ulrich on drums. He did a guest appearance, which probably did boost sales of the album, honestly. And it is a cool song. It has its trademark kind of Black Album drum sound on it. It's pretty interesting. So, anyways, that's just a note on that. I love that song. I love vampire stuff. I'm obsessed with vampire shit. I'm just going to be honest. And speaking of that also, that's also boosted the rating of Dead Again. Because it has Sucking My Blood on it. Or was that 9? I think it's Dead Again. So, 9 has some just kind of the songwriting. It's a little dry. It's not as dry as Dead Again. It has more melody, but at the same time, it's like the melodies kind of aren't as strong because the dryness and the riffs kind of make up for what it lacks in the melody camp, in my opinion, on Dead Again. And 9 has a little bit more melody, but it's just some of the songs I didn't like as much, and I don't like it as much. So 9, I almost didn't finish this sentence. Okay. I saw the last night of the last tour with the original, not the original lineup, but the original iteration of the reunion band, or not the original iteration, but I'm messing up my words. The last tour of that run, from 93 to 99. I saw the last show in Milwaukee, the 9 tour. It was fantastic. Fantastic show. It definitely was a top show. I have the shirt still. I'll wear it in another video. I still have the 9 shirt. My first King Diamond or Mercyful Fate shirt, I believe, that I ever owned. And it was just, it was incredible. They didn't play the whole song, but they played Legend of the Headless Rider, the intro, which to me was like fan service of the highest degree, because it's underrated song. It's like if Iron Maiden, like let's say Iron Maiden played, they didn't play the whole thing, but they played like the first minute or two of Infinite Dreams, right? That was how awesome it was hearing Legend of the Headless Rider live, even if it was just a part of it. So they played that. They played a bunch from, mostly from Melissa, but they played a lot of the new stuff. I think they really are lacking in like playing some of these albums now. Like they don't play a lot of these songs. Now in the King Diamond solo band, quote unquote solo band, I'm just gonna call it King Diamond the band because it's a band. But they played Voodoo on one of the more recent tours. I noticed. I looked at the set lists, but they didn't play any other stuff from the '90s, which I find kind of a sin, honestly. Not a sin in the King Diamond. It's kind of ironic me using the word sin, but they don't play anything from these 3 or 4, these 5 albums from the '90s. A lot of the time with Mercyful Fate, I find that to be kind of egregious because there's some good stuff on there. I mean, obviously, I have it in my top ranking. The second most top Mercyful Fate album, in my opinion, is In the Shadows. So it's ridiculous, but I don't want to. I'm not attacking King Diamond or anybody for that. I'm just saying, to me, it's missing out on some really good material to play live. Michael Denner's not in there. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Michael Denner is an absolute genius guitarist. It's like Michael Schenker. Before I liked Michael Schenker, I liked Michael Denner. And when I heard Michael Schenker, I'm like, wait a second, there's a lot of influence there. So, I mean, I share the same favorite guitarist as the Mercyful Fate guys. Uli John Roth and Michael Schenker are my two favorite guitarists of all time. So, I get along with those guys. But so that's kind of my ranking of Mercyful Fate. Like I said, if I did the full discography, I put the beginning here. And also, Return of the Vampire maybe would be here. Maybe Return of the Vampire might go first, or I don't know. The beginning has the first EP and then a couple other, different sessions of Melissa kind of stuff, Melissa era stuff, and then Black Masses. So I'd probably put that there, and then maybe Return of the Vampire would be here, and then it'd be a full ranking list, and then Bell Witch is just basically a single, but I want to hear you scream louder. I'd probably put that, but just for that alone, that live little, the little thing where he's like, "L.A., I want to hear you scream," where he does the falsetto to say louder. I used to just listen to that part over and over again and laugh. And I'm not trying to laugh at King Diamond. I'm just saying it was funny. Me and some of my friends used to just love that part. So, yeah, it's a Mercyful Fate ranking. My favorites, obviously speak for themselves. I still think their 90s stuff I think it definitely holds a candle to the early stuff, which I don't know if they think that anymore. They believe that, honestly. I think it's excellent and amazing, especially in the Shadows and Time and Into the Unknown. There's that 3-album run for the reunion. Iron Maiden did not have that type of run. You had Brave New World, Dance of Death. Then it's Matter of Life and Death was after that, I believe. I think that was the next one after that, and it was okay, but it didn't. No reunion metal band has ever had a run like Mercyful Fate. I'm going to say that's flat out. No one. I know of no one that's had that kind of run. That kind of 3-album run after they break up after their first 2 full-length albums. They go on hiatus. I mean, they break up. But they're kind of on hiatus because they were friendly too. But, they have this huge hiatus for the time. Of course, it's been 17 years since the last King Diamond album and 25 years since the last Mercyful Fate album. But nevertheless, back in the day, that was a long time, when you're, much younger and into metal or you're in a metal band, it's a much longer hiatus, is 9 years, than now. And back then, when things were happening so fast, too. So, yeah, nobody had a reunion like Mercyful Fate. It was the greatest reunion run. Exodus had a couple, when they get back with Steve Swayze, they had some good stuff. There are some other bands. Testament did okay, too, when they got kind of sort of back together with Skolnick and stuff. I'm just looking at my CD collection over here. I'm trying to think of more bands that did great stuff with reunions. Deep Purple's Perfect Strangers was good, but were the following albums half as good? Did you have... Okay, so Mercyful Fate, In the Shadows, Time, and Into the Unknown. All terrific albums. Just terrific stuff. And even these 2 aren't bad either, And I don't think anybody else had a run like that with a reunion band. Just a comeback. It wasn't a comeback. It was a run. It was a continuation. It was like, you took them frozen in time. You froze it in time and Don't Break the Oath, and then you got back to, it's like they just put them in suspended animation for 9 years. Of course, King Diamond did a bunch of albums, the band King Diamond. But still, nobody else had a run like that. In my humble opinion, I think that's just the best run of any band that got back together after a semi non-amicable but amicable whatever, it was kind of amicable but kind of not hiatus or breakup. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. I think they're just amazing albums. They, pun intended, shine a light on anything made today. They're a lot better than any band that's around today that's doing albums and stuff, in my opinion. So some of the greatest metal ever recorded, I dare say. Some of the greatest metal. Some of the greatest, whatever you want to call it, traditional black power, whatever, I don't know. I don't know what to call it, you know. Whatever they do. They had a progressive edge, you know. They definitely had a progressive technical edge to some of the stuff. So I really admire that too. And looking back on that and listening to it now, just it's so fresh. I mean, listen to Into the Unknown, you know, and just some great stuff like the title track. Anyways, I think that'll wrap up this ranking video. And you know, I wish I could do. I might do another version of this video down the road. And who knows, maybe my ranking may change. Like Ralph Vieira, I watch his channel a lot, Dr. Fuck. And his rankings change all the time. I mean, sometimes you get in the mood for something, and you're like, I like this better than I thought, or I don't like it as much as I used to. Blah, blah, blah. It's I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of people say, oh, you just have your static, you know, tastes shouldn't change in your lifetime. I think some people actually believe that, you know. It's like with chicks, you know, it's like celebrity chicks, I mean. Winona Ryder was hot. I didn't think she was back in the day. I was like, oh, she's okay. I was like obsessed with Kate Winslet. No, I still like Kate Winslet, but Winona Ryder was really hot too. I mean, God, what was I missing out on, you know? Just like, sometimes your tastes change. That's the whole point. But anyways, that's about all.